Keanu Reeves' canceled sequel battle from 4 years ago was more one-sided than anyone could have predicted. Having been in the spotlight for several decades, Keanu Reeves has become one of the most admired actors in the industry, and two of his biggest franchises almost went head-to-head in 2021. Among his many exciting projects over the years, Reeves has become synonymous with two major action franchises, which were both originally set to have sequels in the same year, and the results were completely one-sided. Long before Reeves voiced Sonic 3's Shadow the Hedgehog, the actor turned several films into big hits, but it was his work in The Matrix and John Wick that really stood out. Both have become massive franchises, largely thanks to Reeves' performances, and have easily provided his more recognizable roles. The two series are full of personality and have fun concepts that have kept audiences returning for years to come. In addition, both Neo and John Wick are among Keanu Reeves' best-ever characters, proving how important each franchise is to him. As a result, it's not surprising that he was willing to return for another installment of The Matrix and John Wick, but they almost competed against one another, and there was one clear winner. The battle between John Wick 4 and The Matrix Resurrections was set for 2021. After an 18-year hiatus, the Matrix franchise returned in 2021 with The Matrix Resurrections and John Wick. Chapter 4 was initially set to be released alongside it. The first two Matrix films were fantastic, helping the franchise become a cinematic classic, but the third installment failed to meet the same expectations. Still, a trilogy at least felt like the right place to leave the series, but with the popularity of remakes and sequels skyrocketing in the late 2010s, The Matrix returned with a fourth film in 2021, and it wasn't the only Reeves franchise scheduled to make a comeback. While the setback may have seemed like a bad thing on paper, it actually worked out for the better as Chapter 4 became the best John Wick movie yet. Unlike The Matrix, John Wick was still a very active franchise, and despite Chapter 3 being released in 2019, John Wick, Chapter 4 was supposed to drop just 2 years later. Parabellum performed incredibly well, making the studio keen to cash in on its red-hot form with a new installment. But unfortunately, COVID-19 caused the movie to be delayed until 2023, meaning the battle between Reeves' biggest blockbusters never happened. While the setback may have seemed like a bad thing on paper, it actually worked out for the better, as Chapter 4 became the best John Wick movie yet. Still, the prospect of Reeves' two most iconic franchises competing sounds like a lot of fun, but given their contrasting fates, there would only have ever been one winner. Keanu Reeves' John Wick 4 turned out so much better than The Matrix Resurrections. The Matrix's attempted comeback fell much flatter than the continuation of John Wick, as they had entirely different receptions. Alongside becoming the best-received entry in the series, John Wick 4's impressive box office was an all-time high for the franchise. Between all four movies, John Wick officially grossed over $1 billion, meaning the fourth installment cemented its status as a blockbuster hit. On the other hand, The Matrix Resurrections flopped at the box office and didn't make a particularly big impression among critics or audiences, proving another movie really wasn't needed for the classic sci-fi franchise. Although its reviews are slightly better across the board than The Matrix 3, Resurrections made just $159 million from a $190 million budget. This was by far The Matrix's worst-performing movie financially, and while the fallout of COVID undoubtedly had an impact, it was clear audiences weren't queuing up for a franchise that had been gone for close to 2 decades. Although some movie series do make impressive comebacks after a long hiatus, The Matrix wasn't one of them, and Resurrection fell drastically short of expectations, especially compared to John Wick 4's massive fanfare. John Wick 4 releasing in 2021 would have hurt The Matrix Resurrections even more. While The Matrix Resurrections didn't perform how the creators would have hoped, it could have been so much worse if John Wick 4 had been released in the same year. The effects of COVID made cinema trips much less common, and if viewers had to choose between Reeves' two returning franchises, the results showed John Wick 4 would have almost certainly been the more desirable option. The previous three movies had won the trust of the fans, and given the modern audience was already invested in the story, seeing Chapter 4 was a no-brainer for those familiar with John Wick. Social media would likely have marketed the two against one another, and while both have mainstream relevancy, John Wick probably would have won the online war. Given The Matrix Resurrections also released in December, John Wick 4 would likely have come out beforehand. Therefore, the exceptional reviews would have been a complete contrast to The Matrix Resurrections, meaning people who didn't go and see the film right away may have been put off compared to Keanu Reeves' other release. A 2021 debut still could have hurt John Wick 4 since the movie may have been rushed, but there's no doubt it would have had a negative impact on The Matrix Resurrections box office, and the comparisons between the two may have even damaged the latter's overall reception, proving how one-sided the battle would have been.